Hello, it's nice to see you all here. I think I have one person maybe isn't here yet, so hopefully they'll still make it. But we'll go ahead and get started. I have 11 students that will be playing, and I have had 12 kind of off and on. So I usually start with the ones who have been taking lessons for the shortest amount of time, and then you'll see the level. So that kind of clues you in about where you will be in the program. We'll start off with, I have a couple, a brother, sister. This is the Norse family, and Grace will play first. at our church service, the pastor usually will say, let's all take a deep breath and kind of get in the mood for the church service. I think now you can all take a deep breath and sigh, it's over. It's always hard to get up in front of a group of people. It's the nerves kind of happen, and the kids were all doing really good with their pieces. So I have a little explanation, though, on some of them, which I like to kind of tell this because I think it helps people to understand better what, their pieces, what's going on. So hopefully I got them in order here. I'll say the names. Grace Norse, she did Ring Around the Rosie, and she's a new beginner. You're first grade, right? Okay. She did something last year. We did it last June, I think it was. So the melodies back and forth between, and this is going to be backwards to you, right hand, left hand. So right and left goes back and forth with the melody. And that in itself takes some practice to get that. Eli, her brother, did Pop Goes the Weasel, which requires both hands played together, and he's not really been playing chords in the left hand yet. And when you think about it, anybody that knows music, but if you don't, I'll explain. You have to put the 5, the 3, and the 1 down at the same time in the left hand. That's your harmony sound against the melody in the right. So it took him a little bit to get it, but he had it tonight, right? And he did nice on the staccatos, because Pop, goes the weasel. Okay, then he was also having to do a smooth broken chord against that left hand, the chord you held. Okay, then when they played together, I found this song in a Walt Disney book I had, and I thought this would be a fun one to do as duet with the two kids. And then I thought, okay, I'll make it a trio because I'll play too. It's written with accompaniment on it, and then the upper part is written as a solo line. But the nice thing about it, it was just mainly 2 notes played, G down to E, back and forth, and then at one point you had to go F and D. So you heard me playing like fourths up in that right hand part, and then I had Eli doing the bass like a 5th and then a 4th. And it's based on the note you land on in the melody determines what you're going to use there in that left hand. So I told him just to think of it after she went like Siamese, then think cha-cha-cha. And he was getting that good. We didn't have much time to work that one up either, so they did well to put it together. Okay, they both go to school here in the West Central Valley District, and then we have Zoe Van Donsler, and she lives in Greenfield. She's one of my newest students and only been taken for a few months. And she's learning the basic notes in the treble clef and the bass clef. And then by adding the duet with her, that creates another challenge because I usually ask the kids to play it as it's written by themselves, and then they have to move up an octave, and sometimes that can throw a person off. And then also learning to play it with my part. So did a good job there too. Lucas Nelson, who happens, yes, to be related, a nephew, our nephew's youngest boy. He's also new, so he's probably been the newest student, actually. And the same thing, learning the basic notes in the right and the left hand, which is mainly like C, D, E, F, and G. And again, I had him play the one solo, and then he had to move up the octave for me to play the duet with him. Nora Newberry, I added notes to her piece to give it a fuller sound, because that was not the way it was written. So, and in order to utilize the music she already had, and I think she was a little nervous because she was doing them good at lesson the other day. Cherubim Mikado, Rip, Roar, and Rag in the key of G major, and he pretty much played it as is, but I'm kind of known for extending a piece to make it longer, especially for recital. So he had to go back to a DS, means not the very beginning, but a part where he had to play it again. And then when his sister, Michidel, played Vivace, fast tempo, in an A minor piece, and that required playing 2 notes in the right hand and then a staccato real close in the left hand part. And then it switched and let the left hand be the melody for a little bit too. So getting the speed, and I will say too, they're used to playing on a keyboard at their home. So when they come and do the lesson at piano, that's a whole different touch. You have to press a little harder on the acoustic keys, right? You can tell that, any of you? But the acoustic piano can really respond a lot better too with your touch. Then they played a duet together, and I'll say that they usually play a duet every month at their church. I think that's a requirement of the mom. And there's other people at their church, I think, that play too, but she always signs them up, so then that kind of keeps me on the ball about trying to come up with a duet for them. And sometimes their piece is meant to be a duet, sometimes it's just really only meant for a solo piece, but I add the left-hand part, tell them how they can do it, and then they can make it a duet. Now, this was the first time that he played the bottom part. She usually does that, and she was more up on the melody. So it was a challenge and a kind of pressure for him to get his part. But and all these kids, especially these, well, even the young ones, but I know the junior high age kids, this past week they had 3 track meets, and sometimes get home late. So it's not always easy to fit practice time in. I realize that. Okay, then Brandon Carlson. I don't know if you noticed when he came up to the piano. He had, you want to hold up your arm? This wasn't in the plan. I got a text on Thursday night right before 10 p.m. and it said, I broke my left middle finger of my left hand. I don't think I can play in recital. And I thought, well, gee, he might have just as not had to come, but I thought, well, I want you to have, he's practiced his songs the longest. He had them memorized, and he had them nailed. We do Zoom lessons yet, because they live a distance away, and when COVID happened, I offered Zoom, so he's my one that we still do that, and it works out pretty well. Sometimes the reception isn't always so good, but so I told him, I text back, I'll play the left hand for you. And so that was a first for us, just trying to do it together today. So that he did a good job, I'd say. And then his sisters, I have to put a plug in for them. His older sister's a senior at ACGC, and the other sister's a junior, right? The junior I had for a few years as a student. Some of you that have been with me a while would have seen her perform here at Recital. And then she hasn't taken for a while, but they put on a musical Friday night, Saturday night, and this afternoon the sisters were in Into the Woods, in case anybody's seen that one. And I told them, oh, our younger son was in that when he was a freshman here in school. That's kind of a hard one. And so they spent a lot of hours there. And one of the reasons I chose tonight to do this is so I could get him involved. And then here he has a broken finger. But I learned to be flexible, go with the flow, right? But he really did have him well. And I think we did pretty good to do it together, too. So I extended that piece as well. So they have to be aware where they have to go back. Okay, then Luke Kading, theme by Haydn. And that was in cut time. And that had a section B with dotted quarter notes and eighths. And that can be a hard one when you're doing two hands together. And then I think I don't remember if I asked you did you go back and repeat too? Yeah. Because I think for recital, it helps just make the piece a bit longer that way. And then his brother Paul. Which one of you is older? They're twins. Paul is okay, a little bit older. He played Alberti's music box in F major. It starts with both hands in treble clef, so you have to be aware of that when you're playing that piece. And the Alberti bass means you're playing a chord pattern that goes bottom, top, middle, top. And that's the left hand doing that part. And the pattern that goes against that right hand melody. And then he had scales that happened that requires good fingering. And the section B, I had him add an extra note so it sounded like thirds. Hopefully when you hear those songs that you can hear the differences. And again, I'm always adding stuff for the kids or extending things. Just ask Debbie at choir. Because here, the next one I'm talking about is Hope. Praise the Lord with the Sound of Trumpet. That's in one of our Faith We Sing books here in the Methodist Church. And that, there's about a half a dozen versions of that book. There's a pew version that's even in your pew here. And it's just basically a melody for a lot of it. Then there's the singer edition that the choir uses. There's a simplified accompaniment version, and then there's another accompaniment version. The book she was using was the singer's version that only had the melody written. So you could hear her playing both hands. We added the chord patterns in the left hand, and that helps to make the piece sound fuller. But understanding the key the piece is in and how the chords relate to that right hand makes you can do that with any piece. And I've taught all of the cading kids that, and some of you other kids too. So it's very helpful when you're having to play in church or elsewhere. And the only thing I think about Hope, do you still have those? Okay. Well, I have to explain. Last Saturday was Nottoway Valley Prom a week ago. And she came to lesson this week with real pretty fingernails, but long, And I said, will you still have them on for recital? Well, so I think that had a little bearing on her playing today, somewhat. Because she usually plays a little bit, yeah. And I'm not saying you didn't do well, because you did do well. But that was a little handicap. I just want people aware. Not to put you on the spot or anything. But, and all these things, everybody's so busy. It was a challenge just to make this evening work. And I know it's a school night too. And then she did the Praise the Lord, okay. And then we had, I guess that's when I played the 2-piano duet with her, Musette in D major by Bach. We had not played that together on 2 instruments till tonight. When she's come for lesson, she's played her part, and then I've done like my upper part only. So she heard what mine sounds like. And then we're also a little disadvantaged at being a distance away. I probably could have had that pulled over here, but chose not to. So I think, keep that in mind. First time we did it together with the 2 pianos, that worked out pretty well. And then we had, I forgot to mention, let's see, I meant to do this up there when I was talking about Luke and Paul. The piece they played that was Jazz Train. How many liked that piece? I thought that was fun. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, I bought this set of books, and I accidentally got a level I didn't mean to get that was going to give to one of the cading boys. But I saw that piece in there, and I got thinking, oh, this is a neat one. It's got an uneven swing style in the right-hand part, and then the bottom part had a bunch of like clunky sounds, fifths, So I told him, okay, we're going to change this a little bit. So I don't know if this is on out there, Facebook or something. I don't know if I get in trouble or not. But I decide, well, I have Paul play the bass fifths, and well, there were other intervals too, while his brother Luke did the upper part. And again, you know, that's two different people having to stay together. I then had him go back and play it again, and then I think how many heard the different sound in the bass? Did you hear that? Where it went da 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 da. I decided when I saw that piece, well, this is going to sound like wheels if he does that. So Paul had to keep that going to sound like the train wheels against that swing style up in the right hand. And then near the end, if you heard it, I had Luke play octaves together at the very end. And again, that was his most challenging thing to work on, getting both hands to do it. Because he could play the other part of the speed pretty quickly, but when he got there, that slowed him down. So I can tell he's worked it, and I also told him, well, just don't play the piece too terribly fast. But I thought that was a really good one, and again, I'm noted for adding things, and I think that made the piece sound better anyway. And then to end up, I enlisted Debbie Wilson. She's choir director here, and we played that piece every year at Palm Sunday. And it's gotten to be a tradition here. People expect it, don't they, Louise? We didn't get to do it the year of 2020, so anyway, it's a neat one. It has words to it, but it's always a real moving piece. It just kind of gives me goosebumps to even play it. So with that all said, I usually give out certificates. So what I want you to do is once you come up here and you just stay up here, and then when I tell you at the end, everybody can get their phones out probably these days and take pictures. So first off, I'd like Lucas Nelson to come up. Like I said, he's only been doing it since December. So we just go over there. Zoe. And I think she started maybe about the time school started this year. And her little brother's out there. You can hear him. Eli. Second year to be playing here in Recital. And Grace. She has a really sparkly dress on. Nora. We kind of had a little bit of a break during the COVID year. So I had some kids that didn't take for several months, and that kind of worked that way with Nora for a while. And then we were able to get on Zoom some, and then in person again. Michidel. And you might as well come up too. And this will be fourth year for them. I would say too, I have a photograph book out there. Look in that, especially kind of near the later years. You see these kids, I've seen them growing up, and they have all gotten taller, and you still have a ways to go, though. Brandon, because Brandon's in 8th grade. This is his 5th year. He goes to ACGC, so he goes to school over at the Adair Casey building, but he'll be up at Guthrie next year for high school. Luke Kading and Paul, I've had them 8 years. So if you would look back in the pictures, yeah, it's interesting to see how they've grown up. And then my longest student, Hope Kading, and she's a senior this year at Nottoway Valley, will be graduating, so I'll be losing her. Unless she wants to Zoom from college. Actually, I'm going to have you come back over here, Cope. Yeah, just stand there for a minute. I used to belong to Federated Music Club, and that's actually, it's nationwide, and there's state ones, but I used to belong to the group that was based in Atlantic. And so kids had to play for piano 2 memorized pieces, and they had to be different too. They couldn't be the same key or same like meter, for example. So several years ago, I decided to kind of bow out on the group. It was getting hard to get kids to go. What they would do was go perform for we'd have piano instructors there to judge. It couldn't be the ones that, were the instructors. And that was based on that one performance only. So, but I'm still following the kind of standard where if you did 3 years where you got the best rating you could get, you'd earn a trophy. She earned one. I've had her since first grade. So 1, 2, 3. Third grade, you earned your first trophy. 4, 5, 6, she earned her second one. Do the math. 7, 8, 9, she earned her third one. And so 10, 11, 12, what's that? 4. She's my, I think, one and only, because I have kept records. I had to when I used to do festival anyway. She's the only one I've ever had that long, and she's going to earn a 4th trophy, so good way to end up here. I've had a couple girls that earned 3, meaning 9 years worth. So this is a special trophy for you. I think the gal at Kim over at Anita Engraving did a good job. Yeah. So if I am still teaching for next year, or it's her brothers that are getting the closest now to doing this. They will be, actually they're going into high school this fall. So they have the chance to earn a 3rd one next year. And then if they stick with it like their sister, they might make it 4. If I'm still around, that is, too. But I just think it's great that these kids are willing to play and then come and do this, too. It's not easy to do it, I know. But I'm really proud of them. They're like my extended family. I think of them that way. So especially this one. And I'll hate to see her go, but I know she's done well. And I also, she has played at their church at the Methodist in Greenfield, and so has her brothers. So I've worked with them to actually do some songs in church too. So it's a good way to get the experience, and then we need people like you later on, too, because people like Debbie and I aren't going to be around a whole lot longer. I mean, I hope enough years, but I think you guys will live more years than right now we will. So with that said, I'm going to try to get them all situated so you can take pictures, and then we've got refreshments out there, so if you didn't get to have any evening meal, there's sandwiches out there and cookies and drink. So thanks for coming.